One last physical kind of developmental change we're going to talk about in infant and childhood is gender-related physical differences. So this surprised me when I first learned about it because it feels contrary to what we've seen in the media and whatnot. But it turns out that 12 to 18th month olds, so 1 year to a year and a half, tend to already show preference for sex-typed toys. So kind of toys that are stereotyped for a particular gender. And one of the reasons that researchers think this is that they've studied different animal populations. So for instance, these are young vervet monkeys, and they tend to make these similar sex-typed toy choices. So for instance, if this female vervet is choosing to pick up and use a doll versus a male vervet that's playing with a toy, they tend to make similar choices as young humans might, which led researchers to believe that maybe socialization isn't the driving factor in why infants play with certain toys. Maybe there's something underlying there because it's unlikely that a vervet monkey's parent is painting their nursery pink and, telling them that they have to play with a particular toy. But this doesn't necessarily mean that, every girl wants to play with dolls or every boy wants to play with trucks. We know, we're in a pretty progressive part of our society where we know that children can play with whatever they are interested in. But there does seem to be some sort of trend or inherent preference based on your biological sex. And one of the kind of other pieces of evidence for this is studying individuals with congenital adrenal hyperplasia, or CAH for short. So this is a condition that results in higher prenatal exposure to male hormones, which means that before birth, something in the mother's womb is exposing that infant or that newborn, that pre-child, to extra male hormones. This can occur in both females and in males. So girls with CAH will tend to have more testosterone, more kind of male hormones, develop a little bit more characteristic male appearances, that type of thing, but they're still sexually and otherwise girls. And then boys with CAH have kind of that hyper masculine, extra testosterone as well. So what I'm showing you with these two graphs, on the top is the percentage of time that all of these different types of kids, so girls both affected and unaffected with CAH, and same with boys, are playing with toys, either stereotypically marked as a girl toy or stereotypically marked as a boy toy. And what you should take away from this graph is that the percentage of time that a group plays with girl toys, the highest amount is this bar that you see here, right? Which is girls that are unaffected, so they do not have these kind of male type hormones. Girls with CAH do, they have that prenatal male hormone exposure. Boys with CAH do, they have that prenatal male hormone exposure. And we know that normally developing boys also have male hormones as well. So this kind of takeaway is that, okay, if you have male hormones, you're less likely to play with girls' toys. If you don't have those male hormones, you have a higher proportion of playing with girls' toys. And the reverse is true of boy. So you'll notice again that bar, those unaffected girls, is pretty low here, whereas the groups of kids that had male hormones tend to play with boys' toys more. Now, I'm not personally fully convinced that socialization doesn't have any effect at all. We know that parents can heavily bias what toys they buy for their children, for instance. And so if they buy a particular toy, that's the toy the child's going to play with. And it tends to be based off what their child's sex is. But as with most things, it's not like you can really pinpoint one particular culprit for these types of things. As with most things, it's a combination, for instance, of nature, their underlying hormones and genes, and their nurture, what their parents buy for them. So both types of things.